Hey, welcome back to JG3 Reviews. My name is James, and I like fountain pens. I like ink. I like paper. And so today we're looking at one of those. This is a pen, and it is a fountain pen, and it is a Parker B... No, wait a minute. It is not. I don't have a Parker B25, but Majohn apparently does, because they have put that thing into the Xerox and brought back the 80s. This is the Majohn, or as it says on the pen, Moonman B25. B25 is also a clone of the Parker name because that's what they designed back in the 80s, the Parker B25. It was a pen that was supposed to bring younger users into Parker's fold, and whether or not that worked, I honestly couldn't tell you because I was riding my bicycle and eating snow cones in this part of the 80s. What do I know? But I do like the design, and it does have kind of that late 70s, early 80s design ethos that can be kind of cool. Very, very corporate looking, isn't it? And kind of neat. It's a metal pen, stainless steel pen, and they haven't messed up Parker's design. Really, about the only thing different is the branding, which is very minimal, and the converter, which I will show you in just a second. Besides that, and the nib, because the nib is not a clone of the B25's nib. The nib is actually a clone of the Parker Jotters and Parker Vectors and Parker 51 reissues nib. And how does that nib actually write? Well, we're going to look at that. We'll look at the design, the features, all of that stuff, how the pen writes. I'll tell you what I think about the pen, whether I like it, don't like it, all of that as we go through this review. So let's go ahead and spit in that camera and get started. Here's your up-close look at the Majohn B25. And let's start at the top. You have at the top just a matte plastic insert for the finial, very simple. Then that metal clip, which is nice and springy, light but not so light that it would be a problem, and a little insert with, in this case, a Spade logo. And just below that, as I mentioned, the curious reappearance of Moonman instead of Majohn. There's no model designation anywhere. Now, the barrel is probably what gets the most attention in this design, and that's because of the way it comes down and then is necked down and then gives you plenty of area on the pen to post. And from what I understand, that was their goal, to have a deep posting pen. It makes for one with a nice appearance, really well balanced, very secure, and it works. And for some of us, it's a very familiar design. This is a Winchester 270 cartridge, and look at how similarly they are necked down. They don't match perfectly, but it certainly looks like that may be where they got a little bit of inspiration. Now, before we get to the nib, I'm going to use another pen, the Olight O-Pen Glow, to show you that the pen does have a plastic liner, and I've had zero issues with dry out or anything like that. It's been a very reliable pen in the use that I've put it through. The grip section is a plastic grip section, plenty of length there and not much of a step down, so you should be able to find a place where this pen is comfortable for you. Ergonomics are good. Then it has a stainless steel section just before you get to the nib. When you open up the barrel, you will find, of course, a converter included because Majohn's pretty good about that with their cartridge and converter pins. It is a 3.4 millimeter cartridge, which means it's Parker cartridge compatible. And that converter would be compatible, say, in your Jotter. Now, as we get to the nib, it's kind of interesting. This, to me, resembles much more a Parker Jotter or Vector nib or a 51 2021 reissue than it does the original B25. Now, I could be wrong about that, but that's sure the way that it looks to me. Again, I don't have the original Parker design here to compare it to, but it certainly looks very similar to those other pens. You do notice, as I mentioned earlier, it says Moonman instead of Majohn, and I don't know, I don't think we're using warehouse stuff now. I think I'm seeing a trend. This is a fine, but it is not visibly marked anywhere, and it writes, as you'll see in the sample, closer to a Western fine than, say, a Japanese fine. Overall, I like the design. I like it because it is a bit early 80s, late 70s retro, and that looks cool to me, and I like a good metal pen, and the price is really quite good. But okay, first up in our size comparison is a Parker, of course, and this is the Vector, and that's a little bit newer design, different aesthetic, but very similar size, and both of those pens very light. I could barely get this thing to stay still while putting the pens in their place because there's not enough weight there. Then you had the Bauer 801, obviously inspired but not identical to the Parker Vector, and I've had good luck with these pens. I've had a few of them, really nice. Give them away. They're inexpensive pens. And then another great pen, a great starter pen, is the Waterman Allure. This one was a kind gift from a generous viewer back at the beginning of this channel, and a great, great pen. And then in its unposted length, kind of middle of the pack here, isn't it? All right, now posted, it is a short pen because it is deeply posted. Gives it a good balance. It's not back weighted at all. Of course, none of these pens are heavy enough really to be back weighted, but it does give it something of a balance and ergonomic advantage. All right, let's see how this pen actually writes. It's a fine nib and a sufficiently wet fine nib. No problem there. I don't think you're going to get any flex out of this. I guess I could try. I haven't tried. Okay, well, you can make a little line variation if you so choose. That's not really that bad, is it? I figured it would be even stiffer than that. Ink today is diamine. And it is graphite. You might ask why I say diamine instead of diamine. For the same reason I don't say graphite. Been a little bit jittery today. I think I drank too much coffee this morning. And my allergies. Running crazy with cedar fever. That's a Texas problem this time of the year. My daughter points out I'm bad about not putting loops in my E's. It is. It's a bad habit. I try, but it just keeps happening. I'm not even sure I spelled that right. Is Domino's, does that have an E when it's plural? I think it does, but I don't know. We're not talking about the pizza place. We're talking about, playing games, because these are my favorite things in the wintertime. Snow, coffee, the smell of a fireplace when you walk into the home, and a good game with the family at the table. We've enjoyed all of that over the New Year's, and probably enjoyed it so much that might explain why I've had fewer videos here lately. Let's do our speed test, and this is meant to show whether or not both flow keeps up, whether or not there are sweet spots in the nib, and all of that kind of stuff. So if you wonder why I scribble, there are good reasons to scribble. You should remember that. Every now and then you just need to scribble. Right? Real time, I felt something there. I think I turned. It's not something I've noticed before with the pen. I lifted there. Somewhere in here, I think it was me, but it could have been the pen. Maybe a little bit of a sweet spot, or maybe a fiber in the paper, but something happened there. Overall, looks good. Ink kept up, no issue whatsoever. And I really like this ink. Let me just take a second to say, gray inks sometimes are underappreciated, including by me. But then whenever I write with one, I think, it's really kind of cool, especially graphite or Noodler's Lexington Gray. They both have such a pencil-like appearance that actually makes it kind of cool to me. It's like a crossover of fountain pen and pencil interest. Pretty cool. But as far as the writing test goes, it wrote well, and I've had good experience with it. Again, I have not had any dry out, none of those issues whatsoever. It's been quite good. And one more little thing, that is one of the good gray inks. I really do like it, and I'll review this soon. I'm overdue an ink review, so we'll put that in the queue along with a few others I've got coming up. All right, so we've come to that part of the review where I tell you, do I like it? Do I recommend it? Should you run away, run to? What do you do? Well, this is what I'm going to say. I do actually like the pen. Now, all of the compliments for the design would have to go to Parker, because all Majohn did here is a little cut and paste. But I do like what Parker designed. Would I recommend the pen? It does write well. It feels good in hand. And even though, I've got a couple of little niggles like the visible glue and the lack of nib options, I would recommend the pen as an inexpensive, either a penabling pen, or you just happen to like the design, but maybe you don't have the funds to go out and track down a vintage model. I could recommend this pen. Good little backpack knockabout pen, great to keep on the desk. One that you can let people borrow and not be too worried about it. One, because it shouldn't really be all that easy to damage or break. And two, because it's not the biggest deal in the world if they do. And if they don't, who knows? Maybe you'll find that you've enabled a new fountain pen user, just like Parker actually intended for the original design. So do I recommend the pen? I can, as long as you're comfortable with how closely this parrots the Parker B25. It's a pen that's out of issue. It's not in production. It's probably not coming back, although honestly, if Parker brought it back, I would go and get one of their versions of the pen, but would it take off? Might not. You know, sometimes what a pen enthusiast likes is not what the market likes. What do you think? Do you like this particular pen? Do you like the design? It's fairly minimalist and simple, yet distinct. What do you think? Has Majohn Moonman gone too far? Again? And do we play a role as customers and, yes, penfluencers, that's such a weird term, in smacking them down every time they come up with an original design that we're then too harsh on? What do you think? I would be curious about your take on that. Am I just completely off base, or are we encouraging them to go with other people's designs by being snitty every time they come out with one of their own? Give me your take. I don't care what it is. Give me your take. I want to hear it in the comments below. And in the meantime, why don't you have a good week? God bless you, and I'll see you in the next review.